Welcome to the Finance Magnates Blockchain Podcast. I'm Rachel McIntosh. Jeff Koyen is the president and CEO of 360 Blockchain USA. The company invests in blockchain products with a focus on early-stage opportunities. Recently, we asked Jeff about his company, his views on crypto regulation as a veteran trader and entrepreneur, and his experience using cryptocurrency to purchase a home. Okay, well, Jeff, thanks for joining us. So can you tell us just a little bit about who you are?
Sure. I am currently the president and CEO of 360 Blockchain USA. We are the U.S. subsidiary of 360 Blockchain Inc. And 360 Inc. is a public company in Canada. We trade on the CSE, or the Canadian Securities Exchange, under code, and we invest in blockchain products. We're fairly small, we're aggressive, and we go for early stage opportunities. We look for majority investments. We have some passive investments, but we like to find young teams, early stage, people with good ideas and sort of technology in place, but they need a little capital and maybe some expertise to move forward, and that's what we do.
That's awesome. So how did you find yourself as part of this company?
Well, it's funny, these days, even a few years in, there's no degrees in this, really, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So like everybody else, I'm self-taught. I bought Bitcoin in 2014 and started trading, and at the same time noticed right away that blockchain was going to be sort of, the concurrent, maybe more legitimate, stepbrother of crypto. And so I kept an eye on that. I have a fairly good technical background, but I'm a journalist. I should have opened to that. I'm a journalist by training, but I've done covered tech, and I can hack my way through PHP and build websites for fun. So it was kind of just a good meeting through friends of friends that I met the 360 guys, and they had recently decided that blockchain was going to be the focus of this company, and we hit it off, and I started sort of putting my journalist skills to use with them. I said, if you need due diligence done on an industry or a proposal coming in, let me do the journalist thing, and I'll give you a full report on companies or players you're interested in. So we did that, and that turned into just sort of me taking over the investment arm in the U.S.
Okay, and so I've heard something about you, which is that you are buying a house with cryptocurrency at the moment.
It's a fun topic to talk about. And my wife and I are in the process of buying a house using the proceeds of cryptocurrency. Now, it's a great topic to talk about because you see the headlines and people buying mansions with Bitcoin and stuff, and it's probably not the case. If you look past the headlines, you find out most of the time they're just converting. They're converting Bitcoin to dollars and dollars to accounts. It's a pretty traditional transaction. Now, what I'm finding, and I don't see anyone talking about, is that if you want to finance a house, and we're not Bitcoin billionaires, so we're still financing, part of our house.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that is an absolute nightmare because banks outright wouldn't take our money because it came from crypto. The proceeds, even though it's been in my account for months, if not years, these are gains over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Some banks just won't touch it, and we're wrestling with underwriters at this very moment to just demonstrate sort of the provenance of this money and say, the one hand, you have people who can't understand, 100x return, and it is astonishing that you could put in, $1,000 and get $100,000 back, or whatever your particular gain was. So they get skeptical of that, but then they just can't wrap their heads around where this money from. So we are wrestling our dollars, not trying to push Bitcoin or Coin on them. We're trying to give them dollars that came from gains, and it's a hell of a thing, and which is one of the reasons that put me on the sort of the regulatory side.
Do you think that Congress will be successful in trying to build kind of like, an uniform federal regulation, or do you think the state-by-state model is going to continue and dominate?
I think in the short term, we're going to see states stepping up and sort of planting the flag like Wyoming did. Wyoming passed the utility token bill, which said, come to Wyoming, issue your token, your ERC20 token or whatever your token is, and as long as it's a pure utility, you're free to work here and transact and money transfers and all that. But in practice, that's not going to do anything because you're not going to conduct all your business in Wyoming. You're going to cross state lines immediately. But it's an interesting. It's a statement right now. So certain states are going to come up and, like I said, plant the flag. But at the same time, the federal government has to wrestle with it and figure out. And I do think there will be federal guidelines of some sort. I'm hopeful, and wishful that it will fall on the side of supporting innovation. But what if I'm talking specifics, I think they're going to come after tokens first. They're going to go after ICOs and tokens because that's the most easily sort of identifiable and understandable thing. You've got a bunch of old white dudes in Washington who have absolutely no understanding of this. And even a lot of their advisors and underlings maybe understand it, but they don't really grasp it. It's like watching the internet get explained in 1995 by a news anchor. They don't understand it at all. But someone's going to come in and pass something. And I do think they're going to go after tokens first, which makes me a little nervous for ICOs and Ethereum and Waves and all the other token-based platforms.
Right, and you kind of have a unique perspective on this because you're both an individual who's working with buying this house with cryptocurrency and just a cryptocurrency user, but also you're the president of this company. So from the perspective of being the president of Blockchain 360, how do you think that regulation is going to affect your business in the future, or has it already?
Yeah, it's given us pause on certain plans. We started road mapping stuff about a year ago, and even just 12 months ago, the ICO world was greatly different. Speaking as a personal trader, I was in on ICOs a couple years ago, and not that I did this, but it was possible to fire up a VPN and participate in ICOs that were, nervous about U.S. participants.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do that now. I personally wouldn't try to game the system like that. But then speaking as the president of, a subsidiary of a public company, we have to be very, very careful. We have token offerings in our roadmaps, but we have to be, we take it real slow. And we're also a Canadian company, which is actually a good thing because I think there's a little more innovation up in the Canadian markets about tokens. The CSE, which is the exchange we're on, is trying to create a product and a structured offering for new tokens. But in the U.S., it's still a mess, and there's the risk even if you do everything right. And we know how to do things right, and the smart people in the business know how to do things right. You can't promise ROI. You can't promise gains. You can't do any of those stupid things. Yeah. But even then, there's no guarantee that once you're out the door, they're not going to come knocking for what you did 12 months ago. So I think it is stifling U.S.-based innovation in this space. I think there are ways around it, but the ways around it, are fraught with regulatory dangers.
Absolutely. So do you have any guesses or any thoughts on, what the timeline for this kind of regulation will be? When do you think this sort of drama and confusion and all these contradictory statements will be kind of settled and become a more cohesive set of guidelines?
Well, I think this year is still going to be a mess. I think we have the SEC and the CFTC are saying different things. The SEC wants it as security. The CFTC says it's a commodity. And these are, from the outside, and even from a trader's point of view, they may not matter a whole lot as long as you can still get onto Binance. Nobody cares. But, from my point of view, working at a company that's trying to invest, this matters. These are very important distinctions, and they have to sort of come to consensus themselves, or one of them has to win out, and it'll probably be the SEC because I think they've got the bigger foot in this matter. And I think that's going to be 2018. And I think we're seeing this reflected in Ethereum's price, stall. Everybody's stalling right now. Mm-hmm. We're in a bear market, but I think Ethereum's getting hurt a little, maybe disproportionately based on this uncertainty, and I think it's going to last throughout 2018. We're probably going to have a change of Senate, in the coming year, in the year or two, and that may matter. Mm-hmm. Who's sitting on these committees and who's educated about crypto and the importance of innovation in this space. That's going to matter in the next, say, 24 months.
So you said briefly that Ethereum is being disproportionately affected. Why do you think that is?
I think it's, I think people like me are looking at tokens and getting nervous. Bittrex just delisted a number of tokens, a number of coins, to be fair. It was coins and tokens. But that, a lot of us, including me, saw that as a bit of a warning sign that if they're not actively delisting ERC20 tokens and other tokens like Wave tokens and NEO, they're at least sort of getting ready to be nimble, that if the SEC comes down and says you can't trade these tokens, Bittrex can't afford to shut down entirely, but they have to have a mechanism in place to, for instance, to halt trading on just tokens. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. Now, personally, as somebody who's been in this a while, I think the token explosion is madness like everybody else, and I'm suffering ICO fatigue like everybody else. So maybe a little, pumping the brakes on this isn't a bad thing, but as long as it's not baby with the bathwater and, Litecoin isn't getting, dinged and halted, then, it's up to Bittrex and Coinbase and Gemini and all these other guys to, walk it through. I like Gemini's proposal for self-regulatory body over this, but again, these are early days.
Yes, absolutely. So when you gave us a little bit of commentary a few weeks ago, it was, I believe, just after these reports emerged that tons of subpoenas, scores of subpoenas had been sent out to cryptocurrency firms around the country. And you didn't seem to think that was a bad thing. So can you tell us why?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. A subpoena isn't an indictment. A subpoena is a request for information. And if you're a U.S.-based exchange or U.S.-based, money transmitter who's dealing in crypto, you should have your ducks in a row. And I'm not, I admire like Gemini's stance to not issue 1099-Bs, which are, proceeds and gains, because it's not required. That's not an FU to the government. That's saying we're going to give you whatever you tell us to give us, because nobody's really sure. That's sort of how I see the subpoenas is everybody's got their books in order, I'm sure. The good exchanges certainly do. And you want more information? Just tell us what you want, and we'll give it to you. And if it can get us further down the line toward a regulatory framework that can make everybody compliant, let's not be afraid of that. And if you're up to something shady, then it's not going to last forever. If you're doing something shady right now, I advise you to cash out and get out because you're going to get halted or you're going to get seized. But if you're doing the right thing and you're playing by like I said, playing by the rules with quotes around it because nobody knows what the rules are, just keep your books in order, keep your paperwork in order. Don't do stupid things, and you're going to have no problem sailing through this.
Yeah. So, if you're thinking about what the ideal, regulation would be, to protect investors, to foster innovation, and all that jazz, all of the best things that could be, for the cryptocurrency markets, what would that look like exactly for you?
As a trader, and this is just personally as a trader, I love the Wild West aspect of crypto. I love it. My Wild West trading days are probably behind me, but I don't want to see, crypto's edges get filed down through overregulation. But that being said, we have to remember this is a global thing. What the U.S. says goes doesn't dictate it for everybody else. And I think that's also crucial. Different countries are allowed to determine the risk level and the tolerance and how much they want to, Bigfoot this and put their foot down. You see Japan doing different things than Korea. India has a different stance and they have their own motives, just like we do. I want to see clear regulatory frameworks that allow, especially platforms. I want to see platforms come up and be able to onboard, DIY investors. Right now, a lot of DIY investors are, wide-eyed with excitement over the potential returns, and this is where the risks are. They are, sending Ethereum to the wrong address. They're sending Ethereum to the wrong projects. They're, sending their Bitcoin to scams. We need, it wouldn't be a bad thing to see reputable, regulated platforms put in place so you can onboard these people. But at the same time, let the traders do what they want. You want to buy an ICO that's based in, Ukraine, go for it. That's your risk. But reputable platforms that adhere to local, national laws should be allowed to be developed and function and flourish.
So, speaking of this Wild West sort of idea about cryptocurrency, what do you think, obviously there's been some correlation between the SEC's announcement, for example, that cryptocurrency exchanges needed to register with them and the price of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets in general shedding a few pounds, let's say. So, what do you think long-term the effect of regulation will be on the cryptocurrency markets, not only in the United States, but in the world as a whole?
it's going to be a positive thing. Crypto isn't dead. Bitcoin isn't going to zero. This dip down to whatever we're at the time of taping in the $8,000 range it's fine. It's probably where Bitcoin should be right now. December was a lot of fun. Bitcoin 19.5 was a blast. And a lot of people came in at that, and I feel bad for the people that bought, enthusiastically at Bitcoin 19.5, thinking it was going to be Bitcoin 50 come March. Bitcoin 8, Bitcoin 9, I'm comfortable with that. And if we could have some slow measured growth, and if regulation and the threat of regulation pushed our price back down there, that's fine. We need other money to come in. We need Wall Street money. We need the futures contracts. We need ETFs. We need vehicles to come in, and that's just going to stabilize. We may not, maybe Bitcoin's days of, 500% gains in 6 months are over. We might have seen the last of the radically, of the moonshots, and that's okay. The early people got their money. Hopefully they bought their Lambos and off they go. But if it's going to become a sustainable global financial system, and even, the punk in me wants to see it a disrupting global financial system. Great. It needs new money coming in, and that new money needs some protection, and they need some comfort, and they need regulation. So, it's a global thing. The rest of the world is still going to buy crypto, even if Wall Street, kind of pussies out.
Yeah. So you do think that Bitcoin is in it for the long haul. You don't think that the Bitcoin network is not going to be able to evolve and change to do, fulfill whatever global needs it's going to fulfill.
Yeah, right or wrong, Bitcoin is what it is. It's going to evolve, so slowly. It's the changes that are proposed to increase speed and capacity and block size and all that, they end up resulting in forks. They don't result in much, upgrade to the Bitcoin network itself. And that's just going to be a fact of life. It's a giant cruise ship now. And what has to change is Bitcoin's role has to change. We've already admitted that we're not buying cups of coffee with Bitcoin. That's just what it's going to be. What we want to see are products, other coins, other tokens, other, dApps and decentralized and centralized apps built on top of the crypto framework that can let you buy that cup of coffee with a click of a button. And I think in 5 years, just like people don't remember that their phone is an internet-connected device, in 5 years they may not realize that their Starbucks reward system, or their Starbucks credit card is actually driven by cryptocurrency. And I think Bitcoin will remain the foundation of that.
Okay, so you think it it is going to sort of evolve in this direction of becoming something that's used for everyday payments and not so much as an asset, which is kind of what it is right now.
Yeah, I do think so. I think we could see dual use. We could see the Bitcoin itself being the underlying asset class that you kind of come in and out of to buy the currency that you need for that specific application. And that, again, may be seamless to the average user. You may buy that cup of coffee or go to that weed dispensary and use the specific app for that purchase and not even realize it went from can of coin or Starbucks coin to Bitcoin to your bank account.
Right.
But the advantage is it's going to be hopefully quicker, more stable, and carry less fees for everybody, including the merchant and the end user.
Right. So speaking both as a trader and as the president of this company, 360 Blockchain, when you are looking at cryptocurrencies to invest in, what are you looking for? What kinds of things do you think make a coin successful?
Well, as 360, we don't invest directly in crypto.
That's okay.
We put down the rule that we were not investing directly in ICOs, partly for the regulatory issues. We're a public company. We can't be announcing investments in something that falls under investigation 6 months later. And also, like I said, I'm suffering from ICO fatigue. But we do have a mining operation. So we have a cryptocurrency sort of hedging program that we just launched that kind of combines traditional products like the futures with algorithmic analysis of the markets. So right now, the mining operation just is mining whatever's profitable. And I think that's a good way to look at it. Personally, as a trader, I'll say that I love the low sat coins. I'm playing with house money. I've been in for a long time. I like the roller coaster of buying something at 10 sats and watching it exit at 30. But again, that's a personal preference.
Okay, so you're not necessarily as a personal trader, you're not necessarily looking for something that has, long-term potential for technological adoption or whatever. It's more just about the game for you personally.
Yeah, personally, I did in my first ICOs that I would jump into. I did like the technology, and I like Root's projects. It's doing a good thing. I like the certain things, but honestly, I probably exited them when I hit certain numbers. Mm-hmm. So I'm an absolute bull for the technology, and especially in my my job, I think blockchain technology is the defining technology of the next decade. But as a crypto trader, it's just sort of more fun to day and swing trade it.
Gotcha. Okay, so in addition to all this drama with U.S. regulations, there's been kind of a wave of countries recently. We've seen with the Venezuelan petro and, rumors of Iran creating a national cryptocurrency and rumors of Russia creating the crypto ruble. And each of them says they have different reasons for doing this, but it's kind of clear, at least with the petro, that one of the goals behind creating it was so that it could be used to access these international debt markets and evade sanctions. And of course, the Trump administration, I think, blocked U.S. investors from accessing that. So what do you think about this trend? Do you think that this is something that's going to survive in the long term with these national cryptocurrencies? It seems kind of sort of like the U.S. isn't going to allow investors, if they can help it, from participating. But do you think that it's going to last despite that?
I do. I think we're going to see a lot of these experiments, and I think they are just experiments at this stage. It's kind of a shame that the petro was sort of the first one to make headlines, because it's obviously a big piece of shit, and it's obviously I don't want to say scam, but it's it is definitely a means to circumvent sanctions and try to get cash in the hands of the government, and I'm sure they're not going to do anything good with that money, good for humanity. So it's a shame that the petro and Venezuela was the first one, because I do think there are interesting applications. I mean, I'm more keeping an eye on what the central banks are going to do. Central banks are going to start issuing cryptocurrencies, but then that threatens other people in their own ecosystem. So that's where I think the interesting battles are going to come out. The crypto ruble or whatever. Fine, let's see what they want to do with it. What's the purpose of launching it? Is it, again, just to get money in Iran? They want to, that's probably to avoid sanctions as well. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but I'm more interested in the technology, the purpose for them to be made. But I'd keep an eye on the central banks. The central banks are the ones, I think, who are really in control. And if they are starting to feel threatened and they want to play catch up, if they start issuing digital, then there'll be digital currencies. They won't be cryptocurrencies. They'll be digital currencies. That's the thing to watch, and that'll be the fun battles to watch play out.
Can you just clarify for our listeners the difference between cryptocurrencies and digital currencies?
Well, in this case, if I say like a central bank issues a digital currency, that's really just, a virtual currency. It's not going to be operating on a public blockchain. Most likely, it's going to be more like a Ripple, where it's a permission to blockchain and certain players allowed to come in, but they want to take advantage of the speed. The reconciliation time is a big thing, that you can transfer your money anywhere in seconds, not days. And you could, avoid certain fees and regulations. That's just a digital currency. It's just making it electronic. Now, some would argue that dollars and any fiat currency essentially functions as a digital currency. I could live a month of my life without having a dollar cash in my pocket, as can most people. But cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, are what we know them to be. They are public blockchains. They're, open, and the best ones are mined. It's either proof of stake, proof of work, etc. So you're not going to see a central bank issuing an actual cryptocurrency in the way that we think of them.
But do you think that banks, the world over, or, will start using digital currency in a serious way anytime in the next, let's say, 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're going to have an absolute digital virtual currency world within 10 years. And I think it's going to be very interesting to watch the centers of power shift from being sovereign power centers, U.S. dollars, to more transnational, bodies that are sort of sitting at the center and sitting above sort of national currencies. And I think that's absolutely where we're going. And it's going to be confusing, and it's going to be scary to those same old white men in Washington and sitting in other, Senate houses around the world. It's going to freak them out. And I think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll probably look back and be like, well, this is what the world is. I have Facebook in my pocket, just like we are today. And like, who would have thought that 15 years ago? I think that's absolutely where we're heading.
Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun for me to talk to you.
It's been great talking shop. I'm always happy to talk crypto, as my wife, my long-suffering wife, knows only too well. It's been great talking shop. I'm always happy to talk crypto, as my wife, my long-suffering wife, knows only too well.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So this will be posted probably sometime within the next 3 weeks. We'll do both an episode of this podcast that we have, as well as something like an 800-word excerpt.
Sure, carve it up. Yep, carve it up. Yep.
Carve it up, and So also, would it be okay to maybe contact you in the future for commentary about various regulatory things or whatever?
Yep. 100%. If I don't have your email, I'll track it down, and you can hit me directly. You don't have to go through Bill for that kind of stuff. I'll respond quickly with comment if I can.
Okay, really appreciate it, Jeff, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
It's been great talking shop. I'm always happy to talk crypto, as my wife, my long-suffering wife, knows only too well.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So this will be posted probably sometime within the next 3 weeks. We'll do both an episode of this podcast that we have, as well as something like an 800-word excerpt.
Sure, carve it up. Yep, carve it up. Yep.
Carve it up, and So also, would it be okay to maybe contact you in the future for commentary about various regulatory things or whatever?
Yep. 100%. If I don't have your email, I'll track it down, and you can hit me directly. You don't have to go through Bill for that kind of stuff. I'll respond quickly with comment if I can.
Okay, really appreciate it, Jeff, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
It's been great talking shop. I'm always happy to talk crypto, as my wife, my long-suffering wife, knows only too well.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So this will be posted probably sometime within the next 3 weeks. We'll do both an episode of this podcast that we have, as well as something like an 800-word excerpt.
Sure, carve it up. Yep, carve it up. Yep.
Carve it up, and So also, would it be okay to maybe contact you in the future for commentary about various regulatory things or whatever?
Yep. 100%. If I don't have your